Source code. This video is based on key insights from the book Source Code by Bill Gates. Chapter 1, Trey. Bill Gates' story begins not with computers, but with a simple game of cards against his grandmother, Adele Thompson, affectionately known as Gami. This seemingly small detail reveals a lot about the young Bill. His family valued intelligence and skill, and excelling at games was a way to earn respect. Gami was a legend in their family for her card-playing ability, and Bill became determined to beat her, not just for the win, but for the approval it would bring. This early drive to master a skill would become a defining characteristic throughout his life. Gami's background is important too. She grew up in a small town in Washington state in the early 1900s, a time very different from Bill's own childhood. Her mother, Lala, also a skilled card player, showed Bill that intelligence and strategy weren't limited by social status. Lala often beat wealthier women at bridge, proving that smarts could level the playing field. This idea of using your mind to overcome obstacles resonated with Bill. He was nicknamed Trey as a baby, a playful nod to the card-playing tradition and the fact that he was the third Bill Gates in the family. The family's religious beliefs, Christian Science, also played a role. While Gami was devout, she didn't force her beliefs on others. However, her faith instilled in her a strong sense of fairness, integrity, and the importance of using one's mind. Bill observed these qualities in Gami and admired them. A significant event in Bill's early life was the death of his grandfather, J.W. Maxwell Jr. The family's beliefs meant he declined traditional medical treatment, and Bill's parents shielded him from the funeral, a detail that hints at the complexities of their family dynamics. Gami became a central figure in Bill's upbringing after his grandfather's death, reading to him and fostering a love of learning. She started teaching him to read at age 5 and regularly took him to the library. Bill noticed Gami's card-playing skill wasn't just luck. She carefully observed her opponents, remembered what cards had been played, and calculated the best moves. This was his first glimpse into the power of strategy and pattern recognition. He realized that winning wasn't just about chance, but about training your brain. Bill's parents, Mary and William H. Gates Sr., also shaped his early life. His father, a lawyer, was a pragmatic and determined man, while his mother was outgoing and ambitious. Their courtship story, involving a playful challenge and a bit of stubbornness, illustrates their personalities. Both parents valued education and encouraged Bill to think for himself. Bill's early school reports paint a picture of a bright but restless child. He wasn't interested in following rules or traditional classroom activities, but he was intensely curious and loved to read and think. He rocked back and forth when concentrating, a habit that became a signature quirk. His father's military service during World War II also influenced him. While Bill's father didn't see combat, the experience broadened his perspective and reinforced the importance of hard work and self-reliance. He also questioned traditional beliefs, a trait he passed on to his son. The family's move to a new neighborhood in Seattle provided a stable environment for Bill to grow up in, and the story ends with a sense of optimism and possibility, setting the stage for the remarkable journey that lay ahead. The chapter highlights that Bill's future success wasn't just about technical brilliance, but about a combination of family values, a thirst for knowledge, and a relentless drive to master any challenge he faced, starting with a simple game of cards. Chapter 2, View Ridge. The chapter opens with a dramatic event, a tornado hitting Bill Gates' neighborhood in Seattle in 1962. While frightening, this event serves as a backdrop to illustrate the sense of security and optimism that characterized his early life. The Gates family, like many American families of the time, prepared for the possibility of nuclear attack, but it was a natural disaster that actually disrupted their Friday evening. This early experience highlights a contrast, a world filled with potential dangers, yet a childhood largely sheltered and confident. The tornado also reveals a bit about Bill's mother, Mary, and her desire to present a polished image of the family, refusing a barbecue celebration after the damage, deeming it unseemly. Bill was born into a time of significant change. The post-World War II baby boom, the Cold War, and the burgeoning civil rights movement. However, these larger world events felt distant to a young boy in View Ridge. He experienced them as snippets of information overheard from his parents or through school lessons, like duck-and-cover drills. The focus remained firmly on the local community and the family's place within it. Seattle was growing rapidly, fueled by the success of Boeing, and Bill's family benefited from this prosperity. He could hear baseball games from the nearby playfield, and the local library was a favorite place, showcasing the community's investment in education and opportunity. The chapter emphasizes the social and economic context of Bill's upbringing. View Ridge was a predominantly white, middle-class neighborhood, a product of the racial covenants that restricted housing access for people of color. This detail, though stark, provides a crucial understanding of the privileges Bill enjoyed. His parents were part of a generation that had lived through the Great Depression and World War II, instilling in them a strong sense of confidence and a belief in American progress. This belief was further reinforced by events like the Century 21 World's Fair in Seattle, which showcased technological advancements and a hopeful vision of the future. The World's Fair, in particular, is presented as a formative experience. While Bill doesn't claim to have fallen in love with computers at that moment, the fair's optimistic message about science and technology clearly resonated with him. He was captivated by the Space Needle, the water skiers, and the Wild Mouse ride, demonstrating a playful side alongside an emerging curiosity about the world. The fair's emphasis on progress and innovation created an environment where Bill could envision a future shaped by technology. Bill's mother, Mary, emerges as a central figure in shaping his early life. She was highly organized, ambitious for her children, and deeply involved in the community. She instilled a strong work ethic and a sense of responsibility, emphasizing the importance of education, social activity, and presenting a respectable image. Her influence extended to meticulous holiday traditions and a constant striving for improvement, a Kaizen approach to family life. She also fostered a close relationship with Bill's grandmother, Gami, who provided a nurturing and supportive presence. School was a mixed experience for young Bill. He was a bright and eager learner, but found the pace of the classroom slow and struggled with restlessness. He was younger than many of his classmates, physically small, and initially shy. His parents maintained close contact with his teachers, a practice that felt embarrassing to Bill and his sister, Christy, but demonstrated their commitment to his education. While they didn't focus solely on grades, they communicated their expectations through subtle cues and comparisons to other families. The annual family vacations to Cheerio Lodge cottages on Hood Canal provided a consistent and cherished experience. These vacations were a time for relaxation, play, and social interaction with his parents' close friends. Bill's father, known as the mayor of Cheerio, orchestrated fun activities and fostered a sense of community. The tradition of drawing family names for dinner, initiated by Bill's mother, forced him to interact with adults and exposed him to a variety of role models. These experiences, while sometimes uncomfortable, contributed to his social development and broadened his perspective. The chapter concludes by emphasizing the importance of family traditions and the values instilled by Bill's parents. Christmas, in particular, was a meticulously planned and executed event, reflecting Mary Gates' dedication to order and her desire to create lasting memories. These traditions, while sometimes perceived as rigid, provided a sense of stability and belonging, shaping Bill's character and laying the foundation for his future success. The emphasis on community involvement, hard work, and a belief in progress would become defining characteristics of his life and career. Chapter 3, Rational. Bill Gates' early life was shaped by a strong desire to understand how things worked, a trait nurtured by his mother and grandmother. The chapter begins with a family road trip from Seattle to Disneyland in 1963. But for Bill's mother, it was less about the destination and more about turning travel into a learning experience. She created detailed travel logs for Bill and his sister Christy, prompting them to record observations about geography, economics, and history. This wasn't just a vacation. It was a structured lesson in paying attention to the world around them. This early emphasis on observation and analysis would become a hallmark of Bill's approach to problem-solving later in life. The trip also highlighted the influence of Bill's grandmother, Gami, a devout Christian Scientist. Gami's life was one of strict routine and discipline, a contrast to the more flexible approach of Bill's parents. While Bill didn't fully grasp the details of her faith, he recognized its emphasis on structure. Two incidents involving Christie's broken arm and Bill's own appendicitis revealed a conflict between Gami's faith-based approach to healing and conventional medicine. These experiences sparked questions in young Bill about the rational world versus belief systems, a theme that would continue to develop as he grew older. Bill's formal education was supplemented by a strong emphasis on intellectual pursuits. His parents enrolled him in a liberal congregational church, not necessarily for religious conviction, but to expose him to moral teachings. Bill excelled in Sunday school, motivated by a challenge from the minister to memorize the Sermon on the Mount for a dinner at the Space Needle. This demonstrated his ability to master information through sheer intellectual effort. However, Bill's true passion lay in independent reading and exploration. He devoured books, particularly encyclopedias and magazines like Life, immersing himself in a vast range of subjects. This self-directed learning fueled his curiosity and provided a foundation for his future endeavors. Reading wasn't just a hobby for Bill, it was a way to escape and explore. He preferred the company of books to social interactions, a tendency that sometimes made him feel like an outsider. He noticed that his intellectual interests weren't shared by many of his peers, leading to a sense of bafflement and a growing disconnect from his classmates. This feeling was compounded by his mother's attempts to socialize him, including giving him a copy of How to Win Friends and Influence People. Bill found the idea of manipulating social interactions superficial and preferred to focus on his own intellectual pursuits. Bill's competitive spirit emerged during his participation in Cub Scout Pack 144, specifically through the annual nut sale. Initially daunted by the challenge of selling 100 pounds of nuts, he approached it as a problem to be solved, meticulously tracking his progress and striving to win prizes. This experience taught him the value of hard work, goal setting, and competition, skills that would prove invaluable in his later business ventures. His fourth-grade teacher, Hazel Carlson, recognized Bill's exceptional abilities and encouraged his intellectual curiosity. However, Bill also challenged her authority and questioned the logic of certain rules, such as the grading system. His tendency to question everything and seek rational explanations sometimes led to conflict, but it also demonstrated his independent thinking. A memorable incident involving a cow's lung brought to class for show and tell highlighted his unconventional approach to learning and his willingness to push boundaries. Bill found a haven in the school library, where he volunteered as an assistant under the guidance of librarian Blanche Caffier. Mrs. Caffier recognized Bill's passion for books and his aptitude for organization, providing him with a sense of purpose and belonging. Working in the library allowed him to indulge his love of knowledge and develop his skills in a structured environment. This experience reinforced his belief in the power of information and the importance of systems. The arrival of a new sibling, Libby, and a subsequent move to a new house disrupted Bill's routine, but Mrs. Caffier's encouragement helped him navigate the changes. Ultimately, the chapter portrays Bill as a precocious, intellectually driven child who was already laying the foundation for his future success. Chapter 4, Lucky Kid. Bill Gates' childhood was marked by a unique blend of privilege and internal struggle, setting the stage for his future as a technology leader. His mother, a rising star in the corporate world, balanced her demanding career with family life, often using an intercom system to manage the household. This created a structured, ambitious environment, but also one where Bill felt a need to stand out and assert his individuality. His father, supportive of his mother's ambitions, held progressive views on gender roles, fostering a household that encouraged breaking boundaries. From a young age, Bill demonstrated a curious and independent spirit. He wasn't particularly interested in traditional childhood activities like sports, finding more fulfillment in intellectual pursuits. While his mother signed him up for various activities, he often lacked enthusiasm, preferring to immerse himself in books and thought. He actively cultivated a class clown persona at his new school, Laurelhurst Elementary, as a way to gain acceptance and deflect attention from his academic efforts. This was a strategy to navigate the social landscape and mask his intelligence, fearing it might lead to teasing. Bill's passion for understanding how things worked became evident through his detailed research projects. His fifth-grade assignment on the state of Delaware is a prime example. While classmates chose popular destinations, Bill delved into the intricacies of Delaware's history, economy, and even its companies, producing a massive, meticulously researched report. This wasn't about simply completing an assignment. It was about satisfying his deep-seated curiosity and demonstrating his ability to synthesize information. This project foreshadowed his future ability to analyze complex systems and identify opportunities. Despite his intellectual gifts, Bill struggled with social and emotional challenges. He often clashed with his parents, exhibiting rebellious behavior and a tendency towards isolation. His parents sought professional help, and through therapy with Dr. Cressy, Bill began to understand his own motivations and develop coping mechanisms. Dr. Cressy's approach, focused on acceptance and self-discovery, helped Bill realize that his parents' love was unconditional and that he could forge his own path. The therapist's simple statement, "You're a lucky kid," resonated deeply, shifting Bill's perspective and fostering a sense of self-worth. Bill's exposure to the world of business through his parents' social circle and visits to his father's law firm further fueled his ambition. He was fascinated by the stories of entrepreneurs like Dr. Edmark, who invented and marketed a life-saving medical device. This sparked an interest in how ideas could be transformed into successful ventures. He even created his own fictitious company, Gatesway, as a school project, demonstrating an early grasp of business concepts like production, investment, and profit. The formation of the Contemporary Club, with his friends, showcased Bill's leadership skills and his desire to engage in meaningful discussions about current events. This club wasn't just a social outlet. It was a platform for intellectual exploration and civic engagement. The club's activities, including field trips and charitable work, demonstrated Bill's growing awareness of the world beyond his immediate surroundings. Ultimately, Bill's parents decided to enroll him in Lakeside, a prestigious private school, hoping it would provide the intellectual challenge he craved. This decision, though initially met with resistance from Bill, marked a turning point in his education and set him on a path towards becoming the technological innovator and business leader he would eventually become. The chapter highlights how Bill's early experiences, both positive and negative, shaped his character and laid the foundation for his future success. Chapter 5, Lakeside. Bill Gates's experience at Lakeside School marked a significant turning point in his life, shifting him from a generally indifferent student to a budding technologist. Initially, the school felt distant and unfamiliar, a world away from his previous experiences. Lakeside, founded as a college preparatory school for Seattle's wealthier families, was steeped in tradition, with clipped lawns and formal buildings. Reminiscent of the East Coast prep schools he would later read about in books like The Catcher in the Rye and A Separate Peace. However, it was a school undergoing change, slowly shedding its conservative ways. Despite his intelligence, young Bill didn't immediately thrive at Lakeside. He adopted a goof-off persona, a tactic that had worked for him before, but it didn't resonate in this new environment. He felt different from his classmates, many of whom seemed confident and already connected through various activities and social circles. He wasn't interested in sports, a big part of Lakeside's culture, and struggled to find his place. Teachers saw him as a loner, a bit of a nerd, and someone who was searching for an identity. His early academic performance was underwhelming, even earning a low grade on a report about the Black Sea despite extensive research. He even defiantly wrote a dismissive message in his yearbook, indicating his frustration with the school's assessment of him. Everything began to change with the introduction of a computer terminal in the fall of 1968. This wasn't a typical classroom addition. It was a connection to a computer located in California, accessed through a noisy teletype machine. The school's willingness to experiment, fostered by teachers like Bill Dougal, created an environment where students could explore this new technology without strict rules or guidance. Bill was immediately captivated. He found the computer's demand for precision and logical thinking incredibly appealing, a stark contrast to the more subjective assessments he'd faced in other subjects. He spent hours writing programs, initially simple ones like tic-tac-toe and a lunar lander game, but each success fueled his passion. His dedication and growing skills attracted the attention of Paul Allen, an older student who challenged him constantly. This rivalry, along with the friendship of Kent Evans, a politically engaged classmate, pushed Bill to excel. Paul would often pose challenges, knowing Bill couldn't resist trying to prove himself. Kent, with his intense focus and ambition, inspired Bill to think about the future and the possibilities that lay ahead. Together, they formed a small group of students who practically lived in the computer room, debugging software for a local computer company, Computer Center Corp., C-Cubed, in exchange for free computer time. This arrangement, secured through the efforts of Monique Rona, a carpool mom and computer scientist, was a stroke of luck. Mrs. Rona's background and connections provided Bill and his friends with access to a powerful computer and a real-world challenge: finding and fixing bugs in the company's software. This wasn't just about learning to code. It was about problem-solving, collaboration, and the thrill of contributing to something larger than themselves. Bill thrived in this environment, demonstrating a remarkable ability to focus, learn quickly, and persevere through challenges. The computer room at Lakeside wasn't just a place to learn about technology. It was where Bill Gates began to transform from a somewhat aimless student into a driven and ambitious young technologist, laying the foundation for his future as a business leader. Chapter 6: Free Time. In the winter of 1968 and into 1969, Bill Gates and his friends, Kent Evans, Paul Allen, and Rick Weiland, found an amazing opportunity at a company called C-Cubed. Monique Rona, who ran the company, let them use a powerful computer for free, which was incredibly rare at the time. This became a huge part of their lives, taking up their Saturdays, afternoons, and even nights. While other kids were busy with school or hobbies, Bill and his friends were learning to code and fix computer problems. Seattle had a particularly snowy winter that year, giving them even more time to spend at C-Cubed. They knew this wouldn't last forever, so they tried to learn as much as they could while they had the chance. Bill realized he was missing out on valuable computer time and started sneaking out of his house at night to get to C-Cubed. He'd take the bus and walk several blocks, sometimes even walking home in the early morning hours after missing the last bus. He'd often join other people on the late bus, blending in as just another person heading home from work. He kept this a secret from his parents, relying on his sister Christy to not tell on him. Despite his mom being more lenient, she wouldn't have approved of him being out so late. This period showed Bill's dedication and willingness to go to great lengths to pursue his passion for computers. The free access to the computer was incredibly important for Bill and his friends. They were young. Bill and Kent were in 8th grade, while Paul and Rick were in high school and had little to no experience with computers before. Bill believes this opportunity was crucial, giving him a head start that he wouldn't have had otherwise. He compares it to needing a first 500 hours of practice before being able to put in the 9,500 hours needed to become truly skilled, like Malcolm Gladwell described in his book, Outliers. At first, C-Cubed didn't get much out of the deal. Bill, Paul, Kent, and Rick were mostly just experimenting, figuring out what the computer could do. They'd write reports about things like what happened when they spun all the tape drives at once or tried to overload the computer with too many tasks. But they were learning quickly. Bill and Paul would often stay late, grabbing food and even going to the movies before returning to C-Cubed to continue coding. This time developed a work style for Bill that would stay with him for decades: total focus, quick feedback, and a willingness to try new things. The computer was like a slot machine, rewarding him with success when his code worked, encouraging him to keep trying. Because resources like instruction manuals were scarce, Bill and his friends had to be resourceful. Kent copied math programs from a borrowed manual, and Bill worried about losing his copy of an introductory programming book so much that he typed a warning on the cover. Bill Gates owns this book. He wants it. Give it back to him. They even resorted to digging through C-Cubed's trash to find discarded computer printouts with code on them, piecing together scraps of information like a puzzle. They were fortunate to receive manuals from Steve Russell, a programmer from MIT who had created the game Space War, and learned from the experts at C-Cubed. Bill began to apply his newfound skills to create something useful. He wrote a program that would display his mother's meatloaf recipe when prompted, demonstrating his understanding of data and commands. He also started working on a more ambitious project, a war simulation program. He wanted to create a realistic model of warfare, taking into account factors like troop strength, weather, and the effectiveness of different weapons. He spent hours researching and planning, translating his ideas into code. However, their time at C-Cubed eventually came to an end. DEC, the company that leased the computer, started charging C-Cubed, and the company decided they no longer needed the four boys. Bill and his friends were now customers, and they had to pay for computer time. They even tried to hack into the system to get free access, but were caught and warned by someone who looked like an FBI agent. Eventually, they were banned from using the computers altogether. Despite this setback, Bill continued to pursue his interests. He joined a Boy Scout troop and went on a challenging 50-mile hike, where he learned the importance of perseverance. He also went on a more adventurous trip with Mike Collier and other scouts to hike the life-saving trail on Vancouver Island, where they faced challenges like crossing rivers and climbing cliffs. This experience taught him about teamwork and resilience. Bill began to realize that Lakeside High School rewarded students who excelled. He wanted to be part of the free study group, where students were given more freedom and responsibility. He also wanted to be recognized for his abilities, like when a senior math student acknowledged his high score on a regional exam. He decided to apply himself more in school, believing that strong math skills could lead to success in other areas. He was starting to understand that Lakeside offered opportunities to those who were willing to work hard and take responsibility for their own learning. Chapter 7, Just Kids. Bill Gates' 9th grade year marked a turning point, a time when his early fascination with computers began to blend with a budding entrepreneurial spirit. Lakeside School, with its unique approach to education and access to technology, was the perfect environment for this transformation. The school's requirement that students purchase their own books led to a clever, if slightly deceptive, scheme by the author. He bought 2 copies of each textbook, one for home and one for school, to create the illusion of effortless academic success. This wasn't about avoiding work, but about managing perceptions, wanting to appear naturally gifted, a scholarly elite, while secretly dedicating himself to intense study. This early desire to appear capable hints at a developing ambition and a strategic mind. The author discovered a remarkable ability to hyperfocus, a skill that would become a hallmark of his approach to problem-solving. When truly engaged, he could absorb information, organize it logically, and access it with ease. This felt like a superpower, a natural talent for understanding complex systems. However, this power wasn't always consistent. Subjects like biology, particularly the seemingly pointless dissection of a flatworm, struggled to capture his attention. He needed to see relevance, a connection to the bigger picture, to truly engage. This illustrates a key aspect of his learning style, a need for context and meaning. Later in life, he would return to biology with renewed interest, demonstrating a willingness to embrace subjects he initially dismissed. Despite acknowledging a mix of As and BS on his transcript, the author remembers ninth grade as a year of academic breakthrough. This highlights a tendency to focus on perceived success while downplaying challenges, a trait that would likely serve him well in future endeavors. His mother, noticing his increased dedication and improved grades, recognized a positive change. This encouragement fueled his motivation and led to his release from study hall, a symbol of his academic progress. A pivotal moment came with his interactions with teachers like Gary Maestretti, the physics teacher. Maestretti didn't just present facts. He conveyed a way of thinking, emphasizing that science wasn't about memorization, but about questioning, challenging, and evolving understanding. The example of how physicists once believed they had answered all the big questions, only to be proven wrong by Einstein and others, was particularly impactful. This instilled in the author a sense of intellectual humility and a belief in the power of continuous learning. Similarly, Daniel Morris, the chemistry teacher, emphasized the logical framework underlying scientific knowledge and the beauty of discovering how things work. Morris's emphasis on the belief that the world makes sense resonated deeply with the author's desire for order and control. The author's early experiences with computers, initially through the unauthorized access to time at C-Cubed, continued to shape his path. The closure of C-Cubed led to a temporary setback, but it also highlighted the importance of resourcefulness and adaptability. His collaboration with Paul Allen, though sometimes fraught with tension, remained central to his development. The shared pursuit of programming, even amidst disagreements and competitive dynamics, fostered a deep understanding of software development and a growing ambition to create something valuable. The author's foray into writing a program for ISI, a time-sharing venture, marked a significant step towards becoming a business leader. The experience of negotiating a contract, managing a team, and delivering a working product, even with its challenges and setbacks, provided invaluable lessons in project management, teamwork, and the realities of the business world. The incident with the DEC tape, though ethically questionable, demonstrated his willingness to take risks and push boundaries. The summer spent working on PAYROL, despite the conflicts with Paul and Rick, solidified his commitment to programming and his belief in the potential of software. By the end of ninth grade, Bill Gates was no longer just a bright student with a passion for computers. He was a young entrepreneur with a vision and a growing determination to make his mark on the world. Chapter 8, The Real World. The chapter details a pivotal period in Bill Gates's junior year of high school, a time marked by both triumph and tragedy that significantly shaped his path from a tech enthusiast to a budding entrepreneur. The initial conflict with ISI, the company that promised free computer time in exchange for a payroll program, reveals Gates's early drive and sense of fairness. He and his friend, Kent Evans, believed they had delivered on their end of the bargain and were rightfully owed the promised resources. While Kent reacted with immediate outrage, wanting to sue, Gates's father, a lawyer, handled the situation with quiet authority, ultimately securing the computer time through a firm but measured approach. This experience wasn't just about getting what they deserved. It was a lesson in negotiation and understanding how the real world operated, a concept Gates would repeatedly revisit. The successful completion of the payroll program itself was a major milestone. Gates reflects on the astonishing fact that they, as high school students, had created a functional piece of software capable of handling payroll for companies with hundreds of employees. This wasn't just a school project. It was a tangible product with real-world value, and they were compensated for it, albeit in the form of computer time. This early success fueled their ambition and led them to actively seek out further opportunities. Kent, taking on the role of marketing manager, began pitching their programming skills to potential clients, demonstrating a nascent business acumen. They even ventured into subcontracting, hiring younger students to assist with tedious data entry tasks, showcasing Gates and Kent's early leadership and organizational skills. However, this period wasn't solely focused on business ventures. Lakeside School's merger with St. Nick's created a period of upheaval and social change, which Gates observed with a mix of detachment and curiosity. While Kent actively engaged in debates about academic standards and school governance, Gates struggled with the social dynamics of the newly coeducational environment. He felt awkward and unsure of how to interact with girls, revealing a vulnerability beneath his intellectual confidence. He even briefly considered joining the drama club as a way to overcome his social anxieties, a testament to his willingness to step outside his comfort zone. The tragic death of Kent Evans in a mountain climbing accident casts a long shadow over the chapter. The loss was devastating for Gates, who describes it as the first significant encounter with death in his privileged world. Kent's adventurous spirit and willingness to push boundaries were contrasted with Gates's more cautious nature. The accident forced Gates to confront his own mortality and the fragility of life. In the aftermath, Gates found solace and purpose in completing the school scheduling program they had begun together, a project that had become a symbol of their partnership. Working with Paul Allen on the scheduling program became a crucial turning point. The intense, collaborative effort, fueled by grief and a sense of responsibility, solidified their partnership and laid the foundation for their future endeavors. Gates describes how their complementary skill sets, his rapid-fire thinking and Paul's patient, methodical approach, proved invaluable. This period also marked Gates's early exposure to the emerging world of microprocessors, specifically Intel's 8008 chip. Paul Allen's fascination with the technology sparked Gates's interest, and their decision to purchase the chip, despite its high cost, signaled their willingness to invest in the future of computing. The chapter concludes with a sense of anticipation, hinting at the transformative potential of microprocessors and the role they would play in shaping Gates's future. It was a time of loss, growth, and the first steps toward building a technological empire. Chapter 9, One Act in 5 Nines. Bill Gates approached writing his Harvard application essay as a careful project, condensing years of computer experience into a neat, typed document. He detailed his early work with C-cubed, school scheduling, and traffic counters, showcasing the Lakeside programming group's accomplishments. Surprisingly, he admitted he wasn't sure he wanted a career in computers, leaning towards business or law instead. This reveals a young man still exploring his options, even with a clear talent for technology. He recognized the potential of microprocessors to revolutionize computing, but in 1972, that future was still uncertain. A summer job as a page in the House of Representatives sparked an interest in politics and law. Bill found himself caught up in the drama surrounding Thomas Eagleton's withdrawal as a vice presidential candidate, even turning a profit by buying and reselling campaign buttons. This experience showed his quick thinking and entrepreneurial spirit, even in a political setting. He discovered that being in Washington, D.C., made him think seriously about a career in government. His mother heavily influenced his college choices, expecting her children to attend prestigious universities, like his sister Christy, at the University of Washington. While Harvard was the unspoken goal, Bill was determined to forge his own path. Bill unexpectedly found enjoyment in acting, joining the drama club and landing the lead role in black comedy. This was a deliberate attempt to broaden his horizons and challenge the perception of him as just the computer guy. He thrived in the role, gaining confidence and even experiencing his first flirtation with his co-star, Vicky Weeks. The play was a success, and Bill realized the value of stepping outside his comfort zone, a skill he anticipated needing in college. He considered different academic paths, engineering, math, psychology, politics, and tailored his college applications accordingly, presenting different versions of himself to each university. He emphasized his technical skills for Princeton, his political experience for Yale, and his business interests for Harvard. A job offer from Bonneville Power Administration, BPA, presented a significant opportunity. Bill, along with Paul Allen, was hired to computerize BPA's power generation system. This job was a big deal, requiring a level of reliability, 5 nines or 99.999% uptime, that Bill hadn't encountered before. It was a chance to work on a real-world, large-scale project, but it also meant leaving school and living independently. His parents were hesitant, but with the support of Lakeside's headmaster, Bill was able to take a leave of absence. The BPA control room, resembling a sci-fi movie set, was an exciting environment. Bill quickly learned from experienced programmers like John Norton, who emphasized the importance of clean, efficient code. Norton's guidance was invaluable, pushing Bill to improve his skills and rethink his approach to programming. He realized that true expertise wasn't just about writing code quickly, but about writing it well. While working at BPA, Bill received his acceptance letter from Harvard, solidifying his plans for college. The summer at BPA also tested his partnership with Paul Allen. Their differing approaches to programming and their close proximity led to arguments and ultimately, a temporary split. Paul felt Bill didn't respect his ideas, and he decided to pursue other interests. Despite the conflict, Bill finished the Lakeside scheduling program and maintained a connection with Paul, recognizing the value of their collaboration. This experience highlighted the challenges of working with others and the importance of mutual respect. Bill's journey was not just about technical skills, but also about learning to navigate relationships and make difficult decisions. He understood that success wasn't just about individual brilliance, but also about teamwork and collaboration. Chapter 10, Precocious. The year 1969 marked a turning point for Harvard University's computer lab, receiving a gift from the U.S. Department of Defense, pieces of a powerful computer used during the Vietnam War. This arrival set the stage for Bill Gates' future, even though he wouldn't arrive on campus for another 4 years. The military's investment in technology, driven by the Cold War, had transformed the Boston area into a hub for computer companies, like DEC, which had sprung from projects at MIT. By the time Gates entered Harvard in 1973, this environment was already buzzing with innovation. Gates quickly sought access to the Aiken Computation Laboratory, drawn to the PDP-10 computer, a machine he'd been programming with for 5 years. He discovered the lab's history, learning about the Mark I, an early computer used for calculating missile trajectories and even contributing to the Manhattan Project. The lab was funded by DARPA, the Defense Department's research agency, and connected to ARPANET, a precursor to the Internet. While Gates was initially unaware of these connections, he was focused on one thing: getting access to the computer. He saw the lab as a gateway to furthering his passion. Gates' eagerness to dive into the world of computing contrasted with the academic view at Harvard, where computer science was still a relatively new field, nestled within engineering and applied physics. The department prioritized fluid dynamics, seeing computer science as a useful tool but not an equal. Despite this, Gates boldly told the lab's director, Professor Cheatham, that he didn't need to take computer classes, believing his existing skills were sufficient. This demonstrated his confidence and perhaps a touch of youthful arrogance. Cheatham, a seasoned programmer and former government employee, seemed unimpressed by Gates' enthusiasm but ultimately granted him access, likely valuing his independent spirit. Gates' freshman year brought him a diverse group of roommates: Sam Zenamer, a Canadian working to pay for tuition, and Jim Jenkins, a military brat from Tennessee. This experience broadened Gates' perspective, exposing him to different backgrounds and challenges. While he'd enjoyed similar diversity as a page in Washington, D.C., Harvard offered a new level of exposure. He also chose challenging courses, including Greek classics and an open-ended engineering class that allowed independent study. Most notably, he enrolled in Math 55, a notoriously difficult advanced calculus course reserved for the most gifted math students. Gates' ambition was evident in his decision to take on Math 55, despite its reputation. He excelled in math throughout his schooling, achieving a perfect score on the math section of the SAT and the calculus AP exam. He saw Math 55 as a gateway to the world of pure mathematics, a realm he believed required exceptional talent. However, the course proved to be a humbling experience. He quickly realized he wasn't the top student, and the abstract nature of the material challenged his approach to learning. This realization forced him to confront his own limitations and reassess his strengths. Meanwhile, Gates continued to explore the Aiken lab, discovering a PDP-1 computer with advanced graphics capabilities. He learned about the pioneering work done by researchers like Ivan Sutherland and Danny Cohen, who had used the machine to develop early forms of virtual reality and network computing. This sparked an idea for his independent study project, a 3D baseball simulation that would utilize the PDP-1's graphics and the PDP-10's processing power, connected through ARPANET. This project showcased Gates' vision and his desire to push the boundaries of what was possible with computers. Gates' enthusiasm for the baseball simulation impressed Professor Cheatham, who agreed to supervise the project. However, the project proved more complex than anticipated, and Gates struggled to balance it with his demanding coursework, particularly Math 55. He developed a reputation for spending long hours in the lab, often fueled by caffeine and a relentless drive to succeed. This dedication, while admirable, also led to a neglect of his other classes, most notably organic chemistry, where he failed to attend lectures and ultimately received a low grade. Throughout his freshman year, Gates grappled with his identity and his place at Harvard. He had always excelled academically, but he found himself surrounded by equally talented peers. He questioned his path and considered alternative careers, such as business or law, at the urging of his parents. He also began to recognize the importance of collaboration, forming close friendships with Andy Braderman and Jim Sethna, fellow Math 55 students who challenged him intellectually. These friendships provided a support system and a sense of camaraderie. Gates' encounter with Professor Buzen in the operating systems class highlighted his tendency to be overly confident and dismissive of others' expertise. He publicly challenged the professor's approach, only to realize he was wrong. This experience was a valuable lesson in humility and the importance of listening to others. It also reinforced his understanding that even brilliant minds can make mistakes. Despite his academic struggles and moments of self-doubt, Gates continued to pursue his passion for computers. He applied for and received job offers from several companies, including DEC, but ultimately decided to remain in school. He realized that the offers validated his skills and provided a sense of security, even if he wasn't ready to commit to a career just yet. The summer brought a health scare, with a diagnosis of ulcerative colitis, which forced him to spend weeks in the hospital. This experience further prompted him to reflect on his priorities and his future. By the end of his freshman year, Gates was beginning to understand that his strengths lay in the practical application of computers, not necessarily in the theoretical realm of pure mathematics. He recognized the potential of microprocessors and the emerging computer industry, and he felt a growing desire to collaborate with Paul Allen, his longtime programming partner, to build something new. The chapter concludes with Paul's arrival in Boston, setting the stage for their future entrepreneurial endeavors. Gates' journey at Harvard was a period of intense learning, self-discovery, and the beginnings of a vision that would ultimately transform the world. Chapter 11, Wild Card. Bill Gates begins this chapter by describing a recurring dream that reveals a deep-seated anxiety about being unprepared and failing. This anxiety, he explains, stems from his college years at Harvard, when he often put off studying until the last minute, even in challenging courses like organic chemistry. Despite the stress, Gates adopted this approach across all his classes, choosing instead to attend lectures that piqued his interest while neglecting required coursework. He saw Harvard as a place to explore widely, and believed taking double the classes would equal double the learning. This tendency to explore and prioritize his own interests led Gates to choose applied math as his major. His advisor pointed out that applied math was a flexible field, allowing him to study a variety of subjects. Gates enthusiastically took advantage of this, justifying classes in linguistics, criminal justice, economics, and even British history as part of his wildcard major. He openly admitted his risky academic strategy, even skipping required classes to attend others, creating a persona of a clever and unconventional student. This behavior, Gates acknowledges, was partly a way to mask his insecurities with an air of nonchalance, a habit he traces back to his childhood at Lakeside School, where he pretended not to try hard while secretly being very dedicated. The chapter then shifts to Gates's sophomore year and his housing situation at Courier House, a dorm known for attracting math and science students. He ended up rooming with his friend Andy, and they bonded over their shared sloppiness. Gates quickly became involved in a regular poker game with other students, many of whom were skilled in math and game theory. Initially, he considered himself above average, but as he continued to play, he realized he was outmatched. However, he enjoyed the challenge and the opportunity to improve, even to the point of asking a friend to take away his checkbook due to his losses. This experience reminded him of playing poker with his grandmother, Gami, as a child losing but learning with each hand. The stakes in the poker games escalated, and the games moved to off-campus apartments. Gates had one particularly successful night playing 7-card stud high-low, winning a substantial $1,800, but quickly lost most of it the following night. This experience led him to realize he wasn't skilled enough to consistently win and decided to stop playing. Around this time, Gates's older friend Paul Allen moved to Boston and began working as a programmer. Paul became a significant influence on Gates, offering a different perspective and often encouraging him to pursue ambitious ideas. One weekend, Gates and friends visited Paul and Rita, and they all experimented with LSD while watching Kung Fu. Gates recounts a surreal experience in the woods, observing a friend write the symbol for "there exists" in the dew on a car, finding profound meaning in the simple act. He also briefly considered the idea of deleting his memories, but quickly dismissed it, fearing the consequences. Paul, with his extensive collection of electronics magazines, constantly pitched new business ideas to Gates, often centered around the emerging field of microprocessors. They discussed building a computer company similar to DEC and explored various concepts, including time-sharing services and innovative computer designs. Gates, however, grew wary of the challenges of manufacturing hardware, remembering the difficulties with trafo data. He preferred the idea of focusing on software, which he saw as less risky and more aligned with their strengths. This preference was reinforced by his experience with trafo data, where the constant hardware glitches and the need for meticulous troubleshooting frustrated him. He contrasted this with the more controllable and creative process of writing software. The chapter culminates in the discovery of the Altair 8800, the first commercially available microcomputer kit. Paul brought a copy of Popular Electronics magazine to Gates, showcasing the Altair's impressive specifications and affordable price. Recognizing the potential of this new technology, Gates and Paul immediately began planning to write a basic interpreter for the Altair, believing they could capitalize on the lack of available software. They contacted MITS, the manufacturer of the Altair, and secured a meeting to demonstrate their program. Despite a last-minute scare involving a missing bootstrap loader, their basic interpreter successfully ran on the Altair, marking a pivotal moment in the history of personal computing. This success, Gates reflects, was a result of their dedication, innovative use of Harvard's resources, and a bit of luck. Chapter 12, Be So Correct. Bill Gates recounts a pivotal moment in his early career, a celebratory dinner following a successful demonstration of a basic interpreter program he and Paul Allen created. The program, tested on MITS's Altair computer, worked flawlessly, even running a version of the game Lunar Lander that they had learned at Lakeside School. This success wasn't just about the code working. It was a revelation for the MITS team, who were amazed their machine could actually do something. This event marked a turning point, shifting Gates from a passionate technologist to someone on the cusp of becoming a business leader. The story of MITS itself is a lesson in risk and opportunity. Ed Roberts, the company's founder, had faced setbacks with previous ventures, but saw the potential of the Intel 8080 chip to create an affordable computer kit. He boldly pitched the idea to Popular Electronics, securing a feature even without a working prototype. This gamble, fueled by a discount from Intel, allowed MITS to offer the Altair at a competitive price. Gates recognized the significance of this, understanding that a functional computer, even a kit, could ignite a revolution. He saw the potential for their software to unlock the Altair's capabilities, transforming it from a curiosity into a useful tool. The need for a company name signaled a shift in Gates's thinking. Trafo data, used for their traffic counting business, felt inadequate for this new venture. While considering names like Allen and Gates Consulting, which sounded too small, he and Allen ultimately landed on Microsoft, a combination of microcomputer and software. This name reflected their ambition to be a major player in the emerging microcomputer industry. It was a deliberate choice, aiming for a sense of weight and seriousness, mirroring companies like Digital Equipment Corporation that Gates admired. A conversation with Eric Roberts, a Harvard colleague, highlighted the ethical considerations of their work. Roberts cautioned Gates against using Harvard's Department of Defense-funded computer for commercial purposes. This prompted Gates to move their operations to First Data, a commercial timesharing company, demonstrating a growing awareness of legal and ethical boundaries. This move also showed a willingness to invest in their venture, even if it meant incurring additional costs. Ed Roberts's offer of a job to Paul Allen was a strategic move for both parties. Having someone embedded within MITS would facilitate the development and support of BASIC. Allen's acceptance and subsequent appointment as Director of Software Development solidified the partnership between the young entrepreneurs and the fledgling computer company. The inclusion of their BASIC program in MITS's newsletter, Computer Notes, was a double-edged sword. While it showcased their work to a wider audience, it also meant distributing a still imperfect product. The chapter then details a conflict with Harvard's Aiken Computation Laboratory. Gates's extensive use of the lab's computer, coupled with bringing in unauthorized individuals, raised concerns with the new associate director. The ensuing investigation and confrontation with the administrative board threatened Gates's academic future. He defended his actions, explaining the experimental nature of their work and the lack of clear guidelines. He offered to reimburse the lab for his usage and even proposed releasing the BASIC program into the public domain. Gates's letter to the administrative board reveals his evolving understanding of business and responsibility. He acknowledged his mistakes, apologized for his actions, and outlined his vision for the future of microcomputers. The support of figures like Eric Roberts and Tom Cheetham, despite their initial concerns, ultimately led to a lenient outcome, an admonishment rather than expulsion. This experience underscored the importance of ethical conduct and navigating complex institutional rules. The chapter concludes with a reflection on the changing landscape of computing. The scarcity of computers in the past was giving way to abundance, driven by the decreasing cost and increasing accessibility of microprocessors. Gates's mother, Gami, emphasized the importance of integrity and ethical behavior in a letter to her son, urging him to be so correct that in no way can it be construed as improper. This advice, coupled with the lessons learned from the Aiken controversy, shaped Gates's approach to business and innovation. The chapter illustrates how a young technologist, driven by passion and a belief in the potential of computers, began his journey toward becoming a transformative business leader. Chapter 13, Microsoft. In the summer of 1975, Bill Gates arrived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a place that would become ground zero for the personal computer revolution. The headquarters of MITS, the company that made the Altair computer, wasn't a fancy office building. It was a former sandwich shop, quickly turned into a workshop with tables built from plywood and lumber. People were busy stuffing computer parts into boxes, trying to keep up with the surprising demand for the $400 Altair kit. Gates observed that customers, Many of them engineers, doctors, and hobbyists were willing to drive long distances just to get their hands on the new computer. This early enthusiasm showed Gates that something big was happening. Even as a young man, Gates possessed a remarkable drive and a clear vision. He recognized that Ed Roberts, the founder of MITS, had a good idea but underestimated how popular it would become. While others saw the Altair as a simple novelty, Gates saw potential. He and Paul Allen had already written a version of BASIC, a programming language, for a computer at Harvard University. This wasn't just a school project. It was a demonstration of their skill and a glimpse into their future. The trip to the Homebrew Computer Club in Menlo Park, California, further solidified Gates's belief in the power of personal computing. He noticed that these early computer enthusiasts weren't just interested in technology. They saw computers as a way to challenge established power structures and promote the free flow of information. Gates's entrepreneurial spirit was already taking shape. He and Allen weren't content to just write software. They wanted to build a business. They envisioned a software factory that would create a wide range of high-quality programs for personal computers. This ambition was fueled by their conviction that as computers became cheaper and more accessible, the demand for software would explode. They understood that software was the key to unlocking the potential of these machines. The early days were filled with hustle, as Gates and Allen traveled with MITS's Blue Goose van, demonstrating their BASIC program at hobbyist gatherings. The experience at the Ricky's Hyatt House in Palo Alto was pivotal. Their BASIC program, though rudimentary, allowed Altair owners to actually do something with their computers. However, this demonstration also led to an early challenge. Someone copied their software without permission. This incident highlighted a prevailing attitude in the early computer community, the belief that software should be free and openly shared. Gates and Allen, however, were determined to build a business, and they believed that quality software deserved to be compensated. This difference in perspective would become a defining issue for them. Gates's approach to building Microsoft was methodical and strategic. He carefully analyzed the emerging market, identifying opportunities and potential competitors. He recognized the importance of adapting their software to different processors and platforms. He also understood the need to build relationships with key players in the industry, like MITS and NCR. He was a quick learner, absorbing technical information and applying it to his business goals. He wasn't afraid to challenge conventional wisdom, as demonstrated by his willingness to confront Ed Roberts about the faulty memory boards. The decision to take a leave of absence from Harvard was a significant one. It signaled Gates's commitment to Microsoft and his belief in its potential. While his parents were initially concerned, they ultimately supported his decision. Gates was determined to prove to them, and to himself, that he could succeed in the business world. He approached the task with a characteristic blend of ambition, intelligence, and relentless hard work. He was driven by a desire to organize and control his destiny, to build something lasting and impactful. The early days of Microsoft were characterized by long hours, limited resources, and a shared sense of purpose. Gates, Allen, and Rick Hugoworth lived and worked in a small apartment, coding late into the night and surviving on takeout food. Despite the challenges, they were fueled by their passion for technology and their belief in the future of personal computing. Gates's leadership style was assertive and demanding, but he also valued collaboration and innovation. He was constantly pushing himself and his team to achieve more, to create better software, and to build a better company. He was a young man with a big vision, and he was determined to make it a reality. Chapter 14, Source Code. Bill Gates recounts a pivotal year, 1976-1977, marking the shift from a young technologist tinkering with code to a budding business leader navigating the complexities of a rapidly evolving industry. The chapter opens with Gates highlighting the growing acceptance of microcomputers, evidenced by a Businessweek article that recognized MITS, the company behind the Altair, as the IBM of home computers. This recognition fueled interest in MITS, bringing a surge of calls from potential distributors and customers. But Gates already foresaw the limitations of MITS's dominance, anticipating the eventual entry of larger players like IBM and, more concerningly, Texas Instruments. This demonstrates an early strategic mindset, recognizing the transient nature of success in the tech world. Gates's childhood passion for computers is subtly woven throughout the narrative. He wasn't simply interested in the technology itself, but in its potential to disrupt and transform. This is evident in his concern over MITS's reliance on a single product and his awareness of the threat posed by competitors. He describes Ed Roberts, the founder of MITS, as growing weary of running the company, overwhelmed by the demands of scaling from a small operation to a larger one. This observation highlights Gates's developing understanding of the challenges of leadership and management, skills he would need to cultivate himself. The chapter details Microsoft's early financial struggles and its dependence on royalties from MITS for 8080 Basic, their initial breakthrough product. Gates and his partner, Paul Allen, began actively seeking ways to diversify their revenue streams, landing a deal with General Electric for unlimited use of their basic source code. This illustrates their proactive approach to business development and their willingness to explore new markets. A humorous anecdote about Gates being too young to rent a car on a business trip underscores the youth and inexperience of the Microsoft team at the time. The evolving dynamics within Microsoft are also explored. Rick Weiland, initially a partner, decided to pursue a more balanced lifestyle, opting out of the partnership. This led to Gates and Allen solidifying their ownership split at 60-40, with Gates taking on the self-proclaimed title of president. The introduction of Rick's detailed Microsoft Journal, filled with meticulous records of phone calls and interactions, provides a glimpse into the scrappy, hands-on nature of their early operations. The journal entries, including the frustrating exchanges with Steve Jobs, reveal the competitive landscape and the challenges of securing deals with emerging companies like Apple. Gates's dedication to expanding Microsoft's product offerings beyond BASIC is evident in their work on Fortran, COBOL, and Focal, as well as Paul Allen's development tools. This reflects their ambition to become a comprehensive software provider, a software factory as they envisioned it. The hiring of their first full-time employees outside their Lakeside school circle, Steve and Marla Wood, marked a significant step towards building a more sustainable and professional organization. The chapter also reveals Gates's personal life during this period. He continued to live at home, relying on his parents for support, and maintained his academic pursuits at Harvard, balancing coursework with his entrepreneurial endeavors. His interactions with his family, particularly his grandmother and his father, demonstrate the importance of their support and guidance. The introduction of Steve Ballmer, a fellow Harvard student with boundless energy and a contrasting personality, foreshadows a future partnership that would prove crucial to Microsoft's success. Gates's relentless drive and commitment to Microsoft are further emphasized by his decision to dedicate himself fully to the company, even at the expense of his college education. He recognized the need for a strong business partner and, after a period of conflict with Paul Allen, secured a larger ownership stake in the company. The detailed letter he wrote to Paul and Rick, outlining his concerns about the company's finances and operations, showcases his meticulous attention to detail and his unwavering commitment to success. The chapter culminates in Microsoft's legal battle with MITS and Purdec over the ownership of 8080 Basic. Gates's determination to protect their intellectual property and his willingness to fight for their rights demonstrate his growing confidence as a business leader. The eventual victory in arbitration, secured with the help of their lawyer Paul Mines, freed Microsoft from its dependence on MITS and paved the way for new opportunities. The securing of deals with Apple and Tandy, despite initial setbacks and challenges, solidified Microsoft's position in the burgeoning personal computer market. The final move of Microsoft to Seattle, driven by Gates's strategic vision and his personal connection to the city, marked the beginning of a new chapter in the company's history. And that brings us to the end of our summary of this book. I hope you found it insightful and valuable. If you enjoyed this video, hit like and subscribe for more. Your support helps us bring you more great content. Thanks for watching.